More on this Brexit deadlock. We're joined by Joe Twyman in London. He's the co-founder and director of Delpol, a social research agency. Joe, is there any chance at this point that the outcome for Theresa May in the Parliament and with this vote is going to turn out differently?
Well, the last few years of British politics have taught us that nothing is completely out of the question. But it's increasingly looking like it's very, very unlikely that Theresa May will be able to get this deal through in its current form. Already the discussion has moved on to not the first vote, but what if there were a second vote? What if some sort of amendments were made? What if some sort of additional deal was struck? That sort of thing. But really, when it comes to events tomorrow, people assume it's pretty much out of the question.
And at this point, is there an official plan B on the table?
Well, officially, no. Theresa May says again and again that this is the only deal that's available and this is the right deal for the country and the best deal for the country. The difficulty that she has is that she needs to convince a number of different groups that that is the case. She needs to convince her own MPs, she needs to convince Parliament, and ultimately she needs to convince the British people. Unfortunately, all the evidence suggests she has, so far at least, managed to convince none of those groups. The British people don't believe this is the only deal. They don't believe it's the best deal. And certainly her colleagues in Parliament believe that other options should and indeed will be on the table, even if we get very close to the deadline of March 29th.
Why do you think she's had such a tough time convincing MPs to take a second look, as she says, at this deal?
She's had a tough time because she is in what most people recognise is an extraordinarily difficult situation. She has to bring together two very, very different sides of the Brexit debate and hope that she can get enough support, if not from one side, then ideally from both. But the difficulty she has is that she has come up with a deal that, rather than pleasing all of the people all of the time, pleases none of the people at all. And so if you're a Remain supporting MP, you think that this deal goes far too far. You want a second referendum or perhaps to stay in the EU completely. If you're a Leave supporting MP, the likelihood is that you think this doesn't go far enough and that it leaves too many questions unanswered and doesn't sufficiently represent a reflection of the EU referendum result. And so she finds herself stuck between these two groups with a deal that relatively few people, be it in Parliament or the general public, actually support.
So what does this mean, Joe, in terms of that March 29th date for Brexit?
Well, nobody really knows. And anyone who says they do is probably trying to sell you something. We know that as things stand at the moment, the 29th of March is the hard deadline, and that past that point, we must drop out of Europe if no deal has been struck. But there are already sounds coming from Europe that perhaps an extension, maybe until July, might be possible. That's something that came around today. There's also discussions about what we could do in this country between now and March. Would a plan B be on the cards? Would a second referendum be lined up? All of these are possible options. But really, we don't know. A lot of it will depend on the magnitude of defeat come the vote tomorrow.
All right, we'll leave it there. Joe Twyman, thank you so much.